Award-winning natural bodybuilder and international executive chef Ramel Griardi shares his best recipes for building strength. Sports performance trainer and nutrition expert Joe Arco coaches us through the nutritional components of those recipes and shares his knowledge working with professional athletes.
Sushi is by far my favorite meal. In fact, I usually have it about 2 to 3 times a week. The only problem I find is I always have to go to a restaurant to get it. Now, thanks to Body Fuel's Chef Ramel, today we're going to teach you how to make sushi from your home, just like a restaurant.
Tomorogato kamasai mushi.
He says hello and welcome.
That's right, Joe. Today we're going to start off with sushi, believe it or not, with brown rice.
Nice. Now, usually when I go to a sushi restaurant, it's always done with white rice. What kind of brown rice do we have here?
This is sushi grade brown rice, meaning that the grain's a lot shorter, not long grain. So that means it has a lot more starch to bind together.
Now, you said it's a sushi brown rice. So if I were to actually get a package of rice in my hand, it should say sushi brown rice, not just brown rice.
Well, 2 things. You have to look at whether or not it does say that, and also whether or not if you could tell, these are a lot shorter grain.
So it's a very
the
small
shorter
grain
will give you a lot more starch.
So
in
you
there.
couldn't, I mean, if you want to use a basmati or a wild rice, something, you couldn't do that for this recipe.
Absolutely not.
So make sure when you are buying the rice, it is a sushi brown rice. And we're using a brown rice today instead of a white rice, higher fiber, also lower glycemic, so it's a very good carbohydrate source to help fuel your workouts.
Now, Joe, we're also going to be, believe it or not, using rice cakes.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I actually thought you left those here as a part of like your little treats from before, but we're actually gonna use that for sushi today.
Exactly.
I have never seen this at any restaurant before, but I'm looking forward to see how those taste.
It's not just going to taste good, it's actually going to give you a different texture and a different flavor as well,
Not
too.
to mention save you on a ton of calories.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have some fish laid out here.
Yeah.
What kind of fish are we gonna be using today?
We have 3 different fishes. We have a beautiful halibut,
Yep.
a nice salmon, and look at this. This is probably
nice
the
tuna.
best tuna you can find. So what we want to start off is we want to have our sushi rice, which we have already made ahead of time.
Now, can you walk me through the process of actually making the sushi brown rice?
Well, it's always the same process as making any type of rice, which is 1 part rice with 2 parts water.
Perfect.
Now, the only difference is that you're going to add a little bit of mirin in there.
Now, mirin with an M is right here. Now, this looks almost like a vinegar, and it smells very sweet. What is this?
It's rice wine vinegar.
Okay.
Now, you can get regular rice wine vinegar or mirin, which has a little bit more
Sweetness to it?
sweetness to it. Exactly.
Now, when would you add this mirin to the rice?
Well, you could add it either just before,
Okay.
or you could actually add it at the end.
Okay.
And what it's going to do is going to give a little bit more sweetness to the rice, and that's what you usually get when you're doing sushi.
Now, for this amount of rice that we have in here, which is just a little more than a cup, how much mirin would you actually use?
Probably half a tablespoon to a full
So not a
tablespoon,
lot.
depending on how much sweetness you want in
Okay,
that.
so you wouldn't be using like half a cup or
No,
anything?
no,
Okay, so
absolutely
just
not.
a little bit. Okay, so we have our rice ready here. What would you like me to do with this now?
You know what? I want you to place it on here to let it cool off.
Okay, so now why are we cooling this first before we start rolling with it?
Well, because you want it to cool off. The last thing you want to do is actually cook the fish when you're making sushi.
The irony would be cooking your fish if you want to eat raw fish, I suppose.
Exactly.
So we're going to spread this out here.
So anytime you're making sushi, you don't want the rice to go in the fridge to cool it off. That's absolutely
that?
wrong, because it's going to make the grains a lot harder, and it's going to make it difficult for you to work with.
Okay.
When we start making sushi, always make sure that your hands are nice and moist,
Why is that?
because the sushi is a very sticky rice. So you want to make sure that your hands are nice and
stuck to your
clean,
hands.
for one thing, and nice and moist. So
Okay.
we have a little bit of water right here.
Now, I've never done this before. So we're going to compare my sushi building abilities to your sushi building.
Okay.
And being the professional chef that you are, I'm assuming you have done this before?
I have.
So we're going to see how easy this really is.
Okay,
So
put
let's get a
that
little bit of water
in
here.
there. Okay, grab a little bit of sushi rice. Okay. And now you just want to kind of make a pocket in there, and you want to press it together. See, as you can tell, it's starting to look like what in French you would call it the quenelle.
You and your fancy words, I don't know where you come up with these things.
See how it looks? It's perfect.
enough.
It's good enough.
Okay.
Place it on there.
Excuse my reach there.
No problem.
Okay, so we'll get a couple of these made.
Yep. And just keep on wetting your hands.
Good point. The rookiness right there.
Exactly. Now, what I'm going to do is going to let you start doing that, Joe.
Okay.
Start making those nice
How many of these do you want?
Give me about maybe 4 to 6 of those.
Okay.
Now, what I want to do is I want to start slicing the meats themselves.
Now, from a muscle building perspective, 6 ounces of any of these fish are going to give you about 45 grams of protein, which is a tremendous amount of protein. And such a clean protein right now. So we're actually not cooking any of this protein whatsoever. So none of the protein will be denatured, none of the protein will be affected. Plus all the enzymes inside that protein will be intact to help you digest the protein as well.
Now, as you could tell, I'm doing it on a slight bias.
I was going to say, is that a bias?
Yes, that's a bias cut.
The fancy word for angle that you like to use?
And not just that, it's also because you want that nice length on that fish itself. So I'm doing the halibut first. And because there's 3 different fishes, you know, it doesn't really matter what our board is going to be because it's all raw and it's all the same fish.
I mean, sushi really is an art form.
It is an art form.
In Japan, I mean, sushi's taken very seriously. What's the history behind sushi?
Well, you know, in Japan, the sushi itself, there's actual sushi masters out there. They have been taught since they were young how to actually make the sushi. And
am I at that level yet?
Absolutely not. Those masters, they could actually do blowfish sushi, which is a poisonous fish. I don't expect you guys to be making that at home. But here, we're making
the traditional sushi.
Exactly.
Nothing fancy.
Nothing fancy.
Is that good enough here?
That's beautiful.
Okay.
Now we have the salmon that we're slicing off as well too.
Now, especially for for yourself, bodybuilding and stuff like that, how often would you eat something like sushi or a brown rice sushi?
Oh, if I could have it every day, I would have it every day. Tell you the truth, I love sushi.
It really is such. I mean, it's such a protein, power-packed, muscle-building type of meal because it's got everything that you need. We have all the complex carbohydrates from the rice, and all it is just pure protein. I mean, it's just a phenomenal way of packing in a lot of protein to help rebuild muscle.
Right now, we have a sushi grade tuna that's an ahi tuna. Now,
what's ahi tuna?
Ahi tuna means that the tuna is actually a bluefin tuna, not a yellowfin tuna. This is actually the best grade tuna you can find. As you could tell, it's actually from the loin of the tuna itself.
So when you're actually looking at a whole tuna, so the entire fish, you can't really use just any part of that fish for sushi.
No, you want to use the center cut loin of that tuna.
So if you were to go to your store and say, I want a sushi grade tuna, this is what they would give.
This is what they should be giving you.
Now it's also very important to make sure that when you do buy your sushi, keep it wrapped up, keep it in the fridge at all times until you're right about ready to use it. You don't want to keep it out for the afternoon or anything like that. You want to keep it as fresh as possible.
Okay.
Fish is starting to look fantastic.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
We have their tuna.
So we have the tuna here, we have the salmon, and we have our halibuts.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a couple roll sushi here ready to get started. Now, if you've never had wasabi before,
it's a little hot.
Explain the wasabi experience.
Well, the wasabi experience, as he calls it, is actually, wasabi is a type of horseradish. The heat scale, though, is a lot different. It's about 15 times the heat scale of what regular horseradish is.
And if you've ever had horseradish before, it's a lot different than having like a hot pepper. It's more of that nasal clearing, tears coming down your face type of spice.
Right to the back of the head, actually. So as you see, we have the tuna here. We just add a little bit of wasabi here, and we just place that on top of our rice. And that's exactly what you should be doing. You don't want to add too much. You just want to add enough so that way the flavors are there. You add too much, trust me, you're going to feel it.
We have our sushi here, our first one. Exactly. What's our second one going to be today?
Our second one will be our maki roll.
So this is a little bit different than an actual sushi roll. So now we're going to do some maki.
For our maki roll, we actually have this bamboo sheet here.
Right.
This bamboo sheet you could probably find in any type of grocery stores, any type of sushi store as well too.
Okay, so we're going to be placing, what are you placing the rice on top of right now?
We're placing the rice on top of nori.
Okay.
Now, nori is actually a seaweed.
Kind of like the spinach of the sea.
Exactly. Now, we're taking the nori.
We're spreading that rice around the whole thing?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, how much rice would you use there?
You're using enough for maybe about a 1/4 inch thickness of rice in there. And you want to leave a little bit towards the ends and the sides. Just
so you're
because
not flattening out the whole thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
What you want to do is you want to have a little bit of room there so you could actually roll it.
Okay.
So we're almost finished here.
Now, what other, I mean, if you're going to be making this kind of mac, could you add some other stuff in there as well?
You could add avocado, you could add whatever you
celery,
want, some celery,
cucumber.
some cucumber.
Okay, what are the common mackies that you normally make or see?
Anywhere from spider roll, which is soft shell crab that's been deep fried, to shrimps or tempura, or just vegetarian as well too.
So if you are a vegetarian, this is still another meal that you can have. What kind of vegetarian mix could you put in there? So
you
have
your
rice,
cucumber, your rice,
some avocado, some nice healthy fats in there.
Exactly. And or else you could even have some carrots in there. So
now I notice you're kind of putting just a nice line of wasabi across there.
We're just gonna put a nice line of wasabi.
We're gonna get a little tuna mix.
We're gonna put a little tuna in there.
So you're gonna cut that up nice and fine.
Exactly. Just place that in the middle. And what you want to do is you want to take a little bit of water and place that on the corners there.
Now what's that gonna do?
That's gonna adhere the actual
Just make it stick together better?
yeah, the nori together.
Okay.
So you want to place that and you just want to roll it.
Now is there a special trick or technique? So I notice you're not actually rolling over the bamboo, you're just kind of using that to guide.
You're going to use that to guide. I always like to put a little plastic wrap on that actual bamboo sheet. Now, if you want to, you could round it off, or you could square it. So if you want to add it to...
Look a little more fancy.
Exactly. And you know me, fancy pants myself. So your nori,
there you go.
your maki roll is
now,
ready.
That doesn't seem very complicated to me.
It's not complicated at all, Joe. People just make it seem a lot more complicated than it is. Now, like I said, always make sure you have a nice sharp knife, you know, something that you could cut with. And
now, how many pieces are you going to cut from here?
it's up to you how big the pieces you want, Joe, tell you the truth. So I just want to have a few pieces here, maybe about 6 or 8 pieces.
Okay.
So the nori with the rice, the brown rice, and you have the tuna inside there. So you want to place this with the rest of the sushi there.
Okay, so we'll grab this one here.
Perfect. So you have some of the tuna, the maki tuna rolls, the sushi rolls, you know, all that's there.
That looks absolutely fantastic.
And now we're gonna
here's the big surprise.
We're actually taking some rice cakes, some of these rice cakes. Now all we're gonna do is exactly the same way as you would make any type of sushi.
Now we just have a plain rice cake, a non-flavored. And I mean, rice cakes come in a lot of different flavors. Now from a sushi perspective, you don't want to kind of overpower the sushi by getting, you know, a flavored type of rice cake. So we just have a plain rice cake. And one of the nice things about rice cakes too is that they're such low calories. An entire rice cake, like this one right here, is 35 calories. So I mean, out of 4 rice cakes, you're only getting 140 calories, which is great if you're trying to watch your caloric intake.
Could you grab me that plate, please?
Sure. This is quite an interesting twist.
You know
to
what?
Sushi.
It's not just that. It's going to have a nice texture and a nice crunch, and it's going to be lower in calories.
You know, if I wasn't here to help you make this today, Chef Ramil, I would have sworn that you went to a restaurant, got some takeout, and put it on this plate.
You know what, Joe? That's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that you're not scared of making sushi at home.
Not only am I not scared of sushi, but you know what? I absolutely love sushi. And you know, it's one of the best meals for you. We supplied you with some nice complex carbohydrates today, and we've switched white rice with some nice complex brown rice for some fuel for your workouts. Plus, we have the muscle building protein from 3 different types of fish. We have the tuna, we have the salmon, and we have the halibut.
And don't forget, Joe, rice
Plus
cakes.
the twist. So for a low-cal version of the sushi, we have the rice cake sushi for you today as well. So thanks to Body Fuel Chef Ramil, we finally showed you the way that you can have restaurant-style sushi at home.